Welcome in, everybody. Yet another edition of Ritchie and Rob, brought to you by the great people at betPARX. That's my guy. That's Jon Ritchie right there. I am Rob Ellis. Jon, how did the bye week treat you, man? You feeling good, refreshed, ready to roll, brother?
Absolutely. We got the best team in the NFL, and we got a Super Bowl rematch to get us started. Man, it feels like a jump start more than anything.
Get the paddles out. Poof. All right,
Yes.
we're ready to roll, man. All right, you're right. 8-1 versus 7-2. There's a rich history here. Obviously, goes back with Andy Reid being an Eagles coach, but also most recently in the Super Bowl. Interesting when you think about it, Jon. They are, as you would expect, they're different teams now. I mean, the Eagles are much better against the run, and that's one of the things that Kansas City really took advantage of, the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Kansas City doesn't quite have the weapons. The Eagles don't quite have the secondary that they had. How do you kind of decipher taking away a little too much from last year versus, yes, we saw some trends that could play out that way as well on Monday night?
Well, we need to do a better job than we did the last time out. And this defense for Kansas City, it has taken major steps forward. Steve Spagnuolo is a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator many times over now, and he's got the experience of beating us in the Super Bowl. Seems like he beats a lot of people in the Super Bowl, but he's running things differently now. He was always a guy who would take risks, and we know that Steve Spagnuolo goes with the zero blitz. He sends everybody. But now this year, defensive coordinators have gone and invented this new simulated pressure stuff where you put 6 guys up at the line of scrimmage and they're just moving all over the place. And then you might send all 6, you might send 7, you might only send 4 and drop 3. It's the answer to the RPO stuff that we were wondering if the defensive coordinators would arrive at. And yeah, they arrived at a new answer. So now Steve Spagnuolo has zero blitz and this simulated pressure stuff to make his defense all the more formidable. So Kansas City right now, historically an offensive powerhouse, is a team who doesn't have enough talent on offense, and they're being buoyed by the creativity of Steve Spagnuolo on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, they're number 2 in points allowed. That's how much they've improved. An Eagles team to put 35 up against them in the Super Bowl. Really amazing when you think about it. So, Jon, you look at it, it is still Patrick Mahomes, and you're right. They don't necessarily have great receivers, but they have Travis Kelce. The middle of the field has been an issue for sure for the Eagles this year. The secondary generally has been an issue. So even with that said, where they might not be as potent as they were, how concerned are you about at least containing this Chiefs offense?
Well, their tight end is unbelievable. Their quarterback is all-time quarterback. But, Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Rashee Rice, Kadarius Toney, a guy from Penn, Justin Watson and Mecole Hardman. They don't scare anybody, and they really seem pedestrian this year, especially. It's sort of, the old Andy Reid story where he just doesn't really go all in on the wide receiver spot, and he just doesn't really go all in on running the football enough. That's Andy Reid in a nutshell this season in the first half in Kansas City.
Here's my question for you with the Eagles running game. If Jalen Hurts' knee isn't 100%, Jon, and I think we'd all agree that that's taken some, whether it's him keeping on an RPO, quarterback draws, whatever, it's taken away from the Eagles running game. If he's not 100% healthy the rest of the year, can we still see improvement in this run game in your estimation?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're going to see improvement in the running game this week. He just had 2 weeks to heal up, and it's a Monday night game. So this is like as long as humanly possible as any NFL athlete ever really gets. And he's going to be feeling good. I think our rushing attack is going to look the way we have been longing for it to look for several weeks now. It hasn't been quite right because he hasn't been quite right, but I think he's going to have a lot more pep in his step than what we grew accustomed to seeing.
So what's your sense of this game? I mean, it's a revenge game for the Eagles. It's at the Chiefs' place. Andy's ridiculous off a bye. We know that. I mean, what's your gut telling you here? Your sports gut, Jon?
It's an unbelievable matchup. I think we're better than the Kansas City Chiefs are, not by a ton. It's going to be a battle, and
Mhm.
it's going to be fascinating. And you're going to see all sorts of crazy new looks from both sides because both sides had extra time to get ready. But our roster's better. Jalen Hurts will figure out a way to pull this thing out behind this offensive line where we're going to run the football again the way we grew accustomed to seeing us power through people. I think the run game's the answer this week, and we'll be doing it more effectively because Jalen will be closer to right. That's the deciding factor. It's going to be close, and it's going to be back and forth, but we'll run to a win, Bert.
I like it, John. I like it. And by the way, he went off in the Super Bowl. I know he had the one mistake, John, but he went off. More than 370 yards combined for Jalen Hurts in that game. So just keep that in mind, folks. John, a blast as always, my friend. He's Jon Ritchie. I am Rob Ellis. You're the best. You're my guy, John. Give me a hug. Oh, by the way, before we get out of here, John, I know you're not much of a hugger. I understand.
Hard to hug in this capacity here.
A virtual hug.
Yeah.
Last question for you. We could possibly see some Taylor Swift sightings at some point. What is Jon Ritchie's favorite Taylor Swift song?
Oh my goodness. You Belong With Me. Is that the title of it?
That is the correct title. Yes.
I mean, it's just plain and simple and earnest and pure. And it makes me feel like I'm a better person for having listened.
You're unbelievable. I'm going to go shake it off. I'm going to shake off that last part. Yeah. All right, John, always a blast, man. Looking forward to next week as we recap and then look ahead like we usually do. Jon Ritchie, Rob Ellis, Ritchie and Rob for the great folks at betPARX.